Greetings and welcome to a new episode of Indie Dev Live, the show where we try to give you an insight into the lives and experiences of indie game developers. On today's episode, we have Ciprian Bacioiu of Bearded Giant Games, creator of titles such as Ebony Spire Heresy, Pimps vs. Vampire, Rogue Sweeper, Mutant Gangland, and many, many more. Without any further delay, let's begin.
Hey guys, I'm Zappa, a game designer and programmer that recently went indie. I'm the only guy at Bearded Giant Games, and I made a game called Ebony Spire that you can see in the backdrop. I'm from Romania, 27 years old, or 27 years young. I started making games in 2007, worked my way up the industry, starting at Gameloft, moving on, doing some freelancing for other studios. Ended up in Iași, Romania, at Mobility Games, where I worked on Frozen and a few other Disney-ish games. And now I got my own gig going on. Well, growing up, I was more interested in computers and making stuff and creating things. And it wasn't that easy trying to communicate with people. It was like a small language barrier for me, even though we were all speaking the same language. And I found an article, I think, from Edmund Macmillan regarding his CD called This is a Cry for Help, where he was talking about how hard it was for him to engage with people at a certain level. So I thought, like, hey, well, maybe I can start making games and I'll get people to play them and tell them about what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking and what I want to do through the games, and use games as a medium to communicate and talk. So I guess, yeah, it started like this. They were pretty much supportive, even though my folks never understood how I can actually make money and pay for my basic needs by sitting in front of a computer. Like, I still have this neighbor, whenever I get home to my parents' place, that keeps asking me when I'm going to get a real job. But yeah, overall, they were extremely supportive. Oh, man. So I think it was Virtual Cop in 2002. It came on a shareware desk, I think. I can't remember exactly. It was when I first bought my computer. There was this small city block shop with pre-built computers, and they had like an entire section of shareware games where you could buy, I don't know, like 5 or 6 diskettes for about €1 nowadays. And I think that was the first thing I popped in. And right after that, it was Doom. So, that's how things started going. Well, this isn't exactly an ordered list. I can say that one of my favorite genres are RPGs. And on the first spot on that list, there are 2 games, Dragon Age Origins, and side by side with Chrono Trigger. Like, RPG-wise, like, this should be the cream de la crop for me. Our genres, I don't know. I guess I play a few first-person shooters, as long as I have cheat codes for them, because I'm just blasting through them for the experience. Not that much of a great FPS player, but I do. I'm actually going to go and throw it out there. I play first-person shooters for the story, like the Call of Duty campaigns, the old Call of Duty campaigns. And I don't know, I guess I just like puzzle games and turn-based strategy games. Like Advanced Wars is definitely the top 5 favorite games of all time. So, and pretty much everything from Nintendo that doesn't involve Mario. I mostly focus on short experiences that are highly replayable. I like games where you can challenge, where the player can get challenged, like learning the mechanics, learning it pretty well. But every time they start up the game, they have to pass a test on how well they understood it. Well, I always wanted to be a game designer, and every job I had at a big studio in the industry or at any studio involved me being a game designer. But back when I started, Unity was nowhere in sight. You did not have access to game engines that you could use to design your levels and drag and drop and plug in, I don't know, AI scripts and things like that. So I had to learn how to code. So I guess I'm a game designer, but a programmer at heart. I had to learn to code my own games, everything from rendering to physics to, I don't know, AI and making menus from scratch. Well, having more tools is something I wanted when I started up, but now that I got the ball rolling, like I like going hands-on with everything. I usually just pick something that handles a bit of rendering for me, just displaying something on the screen and work my way up from there. Like Ebony Spire, it's all based on sprites, and I just extrapolated everything and made my own cube rendering thingies, apply texture to them, and I don't think I use many tools nowadays. Like most of the level editors are coded by myself, besides my IDE, which is Sublime Text or Visual Studio Code. Don't quite use tools. I like Unity. I used it back at mobility games. It's extremely good for people who want to get things done. But I find myself being more proficient when I have to code in C and Lua using my workflow that I developed for the past 10 years. I'm just way faster. So it's on a PC, but it's a weird hybrid kind of PC. I have a small Gigabyte Bricks PC, which is this big. I have it attached to a 23-inch Android tablet that has a HDMI input. So I can switch between the operating system and Android and also use a touch screen and just touch the screen everywhere when I code. I told you I'm really hands-on, extremely hands-on. And I use Linux as my main development platform. And yeah, well, nowadays that's also my gaming platform. Linux is amazing. Close to 20 hours, I think. Like just before Ebony Spire got out, the last 2 or 3 weeks, I would sleep like 3 or 4 hours a day, to my cat's dismay. And usually when I'm working for myself, I'm way past the 8-hour mark, more like 10, 12 hours. Well, it's a bit hard to say so. Like, I think at most of my inspiration come from early Nintendo games. And by early, I mean Game Boy Advance era, Nintendo DS, and Super NES in most time. And when I start making a game, I'm like, hey, I like that game on the X platform, on the DS or on the Super NES. I wonder if I can make something like that. And I start with a basic mechanic, and that's where everything ends, tie-wise. Because as I implement it and I start playing it, my own style comes to fruition, and it's getting extremely derivative at a point where it doesn't even look like the original thing. Honestly, the one I love the most is itch.io. It's extremely developer-friendly, and the guys working there are wonderful. And I mean wonderful. But the one that makes me the most money is drum rolls, Steam. 1 second. I drum rolled my earphones off. Well, the Nintendo DS was the best platform I ever had a chance to make a game on, and I wasn't using the official tools. I took my own game engine, which was OpenGL 1-ish based a few years back, and I ported it to DevKit ARM. And I got a game. I think I got a bit of Gameloft working on it at one point. And the limitations of that platform allows me to take a lot of shortcuts to say in terms of designing the game, because I know what I have to work with, and it created some pretty interesting things every time I had to touch it. Nowadays, for my own games, because I cannot port officially to the DS, I don't have a dev kit, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo isn't so keen on allowing free DS games or anything else built with open source packed tools. So I gotta say it's Linux. And I don't know exactly why. It's just the thing that the command line's working so great for me, and I can just set up build scripts everywhere, and it makes me feel a bit, I don't know, hardcore-ish. It's not just write some code and just press play, and yeah, it's definitely Linux. Yeah, but hear me out. So the thing about Romania is you got low salaries, but you also have low cost of living. Technically speaking, the amounts of money you pay for 1 month of rent in the, let's take something like Seattle, should keep you covered here in a pretty nice apartment for about 6 or 8 months. And depending on, if you go in Bucharest, you can save 4 months. So think about it like this. You pay really low rent. Food is a bit cheaper than the US, and I'm taking US as a unit of measurement. And you still get to sell your game to people from outside the country. So you're pretty much taking a huge undercut in terms of money you burn during your development time. So I think this is the main reason why people should come to low-cost countries to make their games. As for the industry itself, it's amazing. Like I've been in it since 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, you'd have like Ubisoft, EA, Gameloft, like the big threes here. Namco Bandai that came and left. And in about 10 years since I started out, like I think, and I might be misquoting Andrei Strater from Romanian Game Dev Association, but I think there are about 200 something studios in Bucharest. And I'm talking from one-man studios like me to, I don't know, 10, 20. Like we got the guys from Capsule and Amber, and the industry is definitely booming, and there's a huge amount of talent here. Well, I can't say. Hold on a minute. So I can't say it's been easy. I've been trying to get on Steam since 2007. Back then, I think I was making a game with Berbeci Nikolai from those awesome guys. We took it to a showroom at Orange Concept Store in Bucharest. We pitched it to a lot of people. The response was extremely great. Now, keep in mind, we were like 17, 16 years old at that time. And after getting so much great feedback on the game, we Googled and searched the forums for somebody who worked at Steam and sent him an email about bringing the game to the platform. Of course, he ignored us. He kept doing so for about a year. And I've been trying to get on Steam ever since. And I finally, now with Steam Direct happening, I finally managed to get there 10 years later. The process now is streamlined. All you got to do is just fill your tax information, pay the $100 requirement per game. That's pretty much it. Like, it's extremely easy to get on Steam. And to be honest, it's not as rewarding in terms of satisfaction. Like, back in the day, I remember when Jeff Vogel from Spiderweb Software got on Steam, and he was talking about it. It was like an elite store to be on. If you had a game on Steam, you pretty much made it in terms of how good you are as a production company, let's say, as a development, as a game studio. Nowadays, everybody and their grandma's on Steam. Yeah. Yeah, well, we're going on the Duke Nukem Forever approach. So people still know about a game. I don't think there's any chance we're ever going to finish. I know some concept and some work from Swift. He took it further with Concern Joe and a few other games he made. But I don't know. We'll see what the future holds. It was our first game. We were young. I'm actually surprised we got it working. And we got so much interest in it back then. But you never know. Maybe when we're older and we're going to go for our pension or be retired, we'll get together at a nursing home and I would just make the game. I think Greenlight actually showed the state of the industry right now. Because again, there are many tools nowadays that allow you to make games, and everybody wants to make games. And making games is a wonderful experience. The thing with Greenlight is, back when I started working, if you were working and started making games, when you had something to show, and I mean, you, I don't know, made a camera that moved in 3D space, and you would glue the gun to the front of the screen that would be fixed and reticle anything right here. And the thing like, yeah, I'm making the next Call of Duty, I'm making the next FPS, and you go on a forum with other developers, and they would beat you down with a stick. People nowadays, and I mean, guys starting out making games, like, they're happy that they created something that's interactive, and they have a lot of expectations from it and from them as developers. And they want to show it off, and they feel like they can finish. They don't have the experience with all the hurdles that will come on. And Steam Greenlight pretty much gave voice to a lot of people starting early out to showcase their games and hopefully make it on Steam. And the thing with it is, it just didn't just streamline the process for people making games to release their game on Steam. It streamlined the process for everybody to release something on Steam. So you got newcomers posting concept art or sketches made by their hand. And that's great because they get some exposure and they get some feedback. That's awesome for them. I think they're the people that mostly won with Greenlight. But you also get people that have no interest in actually making games as an artistic experience, as a mean of communication like I'm doing, or something to give value to the player. You get people that just want to make money out of it, and they don't care if it's via trading cards or via exploiting the user or just releasing something that's utter shit on the platform. So overall, I think I kind of hate Greenlight, because I knew that if Greenlight wasn't there and I kept working and I would finally make a good game, I would end up on that platform among the people that made it as making, that's being successful as a developer. So I kind of hate that it made it so easy to get on Steam. And I kind of hate it because it opened the floodgates, and there are a lot of great games nowadays that get almost no visibility via the platform. So thanks to Greenlight, I can say that Steam changed from a tool that would allow a developer once on it to be in the spotlight and get his game showcased, to a tool that just allows you to sell games that happens to have a large audience of people and can give you some visibility in the first week or so after releasing your game. So overall, kind of hate Greenlight. All right, so here, this is a big thing. Well, this depends a lot on the country you're in. It's a part of it. The thing is, if you want to make a game, you need to understand something. Like, if you are supported by somebody else, and I don't mean a publisher, I mean your spouse, I mean your parents, I mean your friends. I don't know, you won some money at the lottery. That's perfect. You got all that money. You can think how much time it will take you to make the game in terms of months. So let's say you want to make a game, and you approximate it to about 6 months of development, and you know how much it costs, your rent costs you, how much your food costs you, how much the assets and everything will cost you. Split, check how much it will cost at the end of the 6 months, and if you have enough money to sustain yourself for 6 more months after those 6 months, you have everything you need to make a game, budget-wise. The problem is when you don't have any of those things and you just quit your job, you need to understand that the time spent developing your game is time that you could have spent working somewhere for for an hourly pay. And when you're not, you never know how much, if your game will even break even. And in this case, I think that budget should technically be your hourly rate on how much time you spent working. And as for taxes go, Jesus Christ, I mean, this is strictly related to my country, but in order to sell on Steam, you need to have a business. You need to get some code, the EIN, or I forgot what it's called for the IRS in America, and for your government here, so you can pay your taxes and all that. In Romania, there are some hidden fees. Like I started as I don't think I know what the English term is called, like a self-proprietor type of a business license. And it should cost you about €100 to get things set up. Now, when I set the budget aside for the last 2 months of development on Ebony Spire Heresy, I technically had enough money to sustain myself for about 4 months. Due to the hidden taxes, and I mean hidden taxes in processing fees, in declarations on promising not to launder money if you're getting money from the US or from other countries. And there are these small declarations and bureaucracy things with not really big costs, but they add up. When you have like €20 to pay in order to sign something, and you got like 20 or 30 of those things, like it adds up. And I'm at a point where I set money aside for 4 months, thinking I'll get to finish the game in only 1 month. It kind of allowed me to survive for about 2 months until I got the game out, and that was pretty much it. Well, game distribution moved towards the online side because, there's no more having to pay for boxes and having to pay a cut to the retail store that would hold your box, and not having to make CDs and print manuals and print all that stuff. So digital distribution really kicked off and allows developers and studios to save a lot on the costs of making a game. But to be honest, there's nothing compared to actually going into a shop and just picking up a box of a game, looking at it and be like, yeah, I'm going to get this. This is cool. And you get to have it physically in your hands. Do you remember, and back in the day when Steam got popular in Romania, when every internet cafe shop had a Steam client installed, and there were people asking, yeah, well, I bought the game there, but I want you, when will they ship my CDs? Yeah, I love digital distribution. To this day, I would say in 10 years, I will never be able to ship a game if I had to go through retail, because the costs are absolutely ginormous. And let's say I would only make like 100 copies. Pretty sure, even if I had the money for those 100 copies, I'm not sure those 100 copies would sell. Like, I'm not sure how I would have to contact stores to get my game in there. Like, getting on Steam back in 2007 would have been easy than to get GameStop from across the world to take my game and put it on their store, me being an unknown developer from a third world country. So yeah, the digital distribution, it's a godsend for us little guys. Loot boxes, yeah, no. Here's the thing, like I love the shareware model. Like, I have a story from when I was 10 or 11. My dad used to travel all over the world, and at one point he brought a magazine from Germany, I think. Yeah, it's definitely Germany, about a first-person dungeon crawler. Like, I remember talking about this with somebody from Germany at an event in Cluj this year. And it had a game there, a first-person dungeon crawl, that I loved the way it looked. Like, I didn't understand a thing in German. To this day, I cannot speak German other than say butterfly in that language. But there was this address there. And I think it said something like, hey, this is the address. You can send us, you can email us money via snail mail or email us a check, and we'll send you the game. So I think I had some money saved. They were nowhere near the sum needed. Like, we're talking pennies. And I sent a full envelope of coins to those guys with my address written there and a small letter written in English saying like, hey, like, your game a lot, hope this is enough money. And I sent it to them, and about 6 months later, I got a letter back from those guys with a copy of their game. So in my case, like, whenever I make my games, I want to make them in the shareware model, but without having enough purchases. I usually make it open source, make it easy for people to get it. They pay an upfront price and they get to enjoy the game and all the updates that come with it. I hate in-app purchases, and I'm talking about that from my experience working at other studios, because I hate the way they work behind the scenes. Because to this day, no game that I ever designed that had in-app purchases was designed to be enjoyed without having some sacrifices. Like at some points, it came down to how many times can we get the player to lose the current level or lose the current experience until he gets to cough off the money. And just in case he doesn't cough off the money, he'll have to win, like, I don't know, 3% of the cases. And I would have an AI or have some other colleagues play the game like 100 times and just change the difficulty in the way it works until we reach that 3 or 5% winnings in the game. And that was just to force people to pay money. Or if they wouldn't pay, so they could play a bit more and get to the next stage and just keep them in the game so they would see the ads and bring revenue. So as a small promise that I made some time ago when I quit the industry and like a year or two ago to actually go and do my own things, was like I would never ever want to work on games that feature in-app purchases. As for loot boxes, I love the way they are in Rocket League, but that's a game that I tremendously love and play a lot. And I see it as a way to support the developers. But I can see the gambling scheme behind it. And I don't want to have anything to do with gambling in my games, except if I make it an RPG that has a gambling machine inside, like the slots machine in Pokemon. So I don't think I would ever go for loot boxes. There is one kind of in-app purchases that I would put in our game. They're called cheats, and the price will be $0. I think it's great. DLC is something that I'm going to pursue for a few games that I make further in the future, because they're a they're a great way to bring some extra value to your game by adding extra content. Because the way I see it, like when you pay $7 for a game I make, or $10, or I don't know, $4, you pay for the content that's gonna assure you'll get a few hours of enjoyment from it. If I make extra content, depending on the type of content I make, if it's just, I know, some new weapons or a new class, something like that, to get it for free because it's part of the base game. But if I'm gonna add something like a new world to explore or a huge level pack or something like that, it will be in the form of a DLC, and you will either get it as a free DLC or for a small sum. Never, ever, at least in my case, if it's just a small edition and not a full expansion, you'll never have to pay more than half the game's price for that content. I wanted to stick around, and I wanted to be great. The thing with the PSVR, as opposed to I don't know when I had the other ones. I have a lot of HMDs for phones. The problem with the PSVR, it's extremely cumbersome to get it going, and it's a great showpiece. When I have friends here at my place for a gaming night, or I don't know, just to get drunk, I whip it off, and 10 minutes later, people are gonna start playing the game. But at this point, if I just want to play a VR game on impulse, I gotta go for a lot of things, like just get the cables out, make sure the cats are out of the room, push the tables away, put the headset on, start the game, wait till it loads, pass through the whole, do you want to play it in VR, do you want to play it normally? And then wait a few minutes more, because if it wasn't turned on for a long time, it isn't accustomed to my body temperature and the room temperature, so the screens will get all foggy. And it's really cumbersome. If someone can make a headset that you can just strap on that also has positional tracking, unlike the head-mounted displays for phones, I think that would be the thing that's missing nowadays to get VR to be more approachable. I want it to stick. I love the concept of VR. I like the way games look on my PSVR. But again, I'm not really huge in graphics. but the interactivity and the fact that it allows me to immerse myself in the game is something like that. It's a huge plus that I don't think the PC can deliver to such a huge extent. So I think it's going to be a big thing, but it's going to lessen its scope a lot. It won't be like, I can see VR kicking a lot of arse in simulators. Like Elite Dangerous in VR, that's the best experience you can ever have, especially if you have the HOTAS and you can have a hand on stick and a throttle. Yeah, well, I actually hacked my PSVR and connected it to my PC because my main gaming and development PC isn't a huge gaming PC. It's a bit small. It's got integrated graphics. But you can play ExFree Reunion in VR on the PSVR hooked up to the PC without trouble. And that's just amazing as long as you don't care about the fact that you do not have free view. So if you're just looking like through a tunnel vision, it's one of the best experiences you can get, besides Elite Dangerous. So let me know when you're in town. I think I'm going to blow your mind a bit where using a Parani Perseus while wearing a headset. Depends what the deal is. The thing with publisher, you notice that there are a lot of indie publishers nowadays, which I think is amazing. Like, I don't think I could ever, as the way I am right now with my games and my approach to development, I don't think I could ever work with a publisher. Because the whole bureaucracy thing and the whole back and forth that's happening, it's something that keeps me away from development. Like, I'm the type of guy that if he wakes up in the middle of the night and figures like, oh, I know how to fix that bug, I'm just going to move myself from the dormitory to the office and just hack away at the code, get it done, and that's it. If I want to change something in my game, like I'm 2 months away from shipping, and I realize, well, you know what? Jumping is fun. I should add it to the game, and that changes everything. Like, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to change the characters, the names, everything up to the last mile if I feel like it. And I believe that working with a publisher wouldn't give me that much freedom, because the thing with my game is, and I think you've noticed it, and a lot of my players notice it, when I ship them, that doesn't mean that's the final version or even the final mechanics. Like, even with Ebony Spire, like I released it as a first-person dungeon crawlers last week. Nowadays, it has procedural generated level, and it's more closer to a roguelike playing first person than anything else. And if I'll feel like it, next week, I'm going to add quests or, I don't know, voice acting, or there are many more puzzles to it. And if a publisher were to approach me, and the whole deal would be like, hey, I know you're working on this game. You're lacking, I don't know, some assets or some sounds. Here's some money to develop it. We want back the money we gave you. And after that point, we'll go on a revenue share. Like, we'll keep 20% of that money and the rest goes to you. I'll be, yeah, sure, we're on board. I think the publishers are great if you want to target something like the Nintendo Switch or the PlayStation, because they can help you with quality assurance, they can help you with exposure, and those are things that I'm struggling with. That's not my area of expertise. And after Gameloft and my experience there with the certification and requirements for each game, I don't ever want to go through a checklist of requirements and make sure that it takes exactly or at less than 6 seconds to get from the first interactive screen to the, I don't know, to the main menu or things like that. So if they were to approach me and give me a ton of cash to finish the game, yeah. But if I have to rely on a lot of back and forth with them, and especially if we're on different time zones, I don't think it would be a good experience both for them and for me. Well, how do you define a AAA video game? Because that's the thing. If you define it by scope and size and budget, oh yeah. So I mean, big, like with 10+ hours campaign, cool looking 3D models, a lot of shaders and effects. Like, I would love for that. Like, I would love to work on a huge game. I'm thinking I would love to work on Dragon Age 2. Not Inquisition, I got the game. I almost finished. Like I tried 3 times to finish it. I'm at 90% of the main quest line. Never got the point. Yeah. But I would love to work on something like that. It will allow me to showcase things that are happening in the game better to the player. But I know that takes a huge amount of effort and cost, and just thinking about tracking of all the models and the workflow and the work pipeline, and getting everything in. And as a solo developer or even a small team, I think that's way above what I could do to make a great AAA game. So yeah, I would love to work on it, but I need to get to the point where I am able to work on something like that. Okay, so this kind of hits close to home because I released the game last week, and now that the sale promotion ended, sales dropped by a lot. I'm in the lucky thing that I'm living in Romania right now, and with about 500 euros per month, I can cover my apartment, which isn't rent, it's actually bought, and my living needs. So I can go by saying that if I sell about 100 and something copies every month, I can continue making games and failing at it for quite some time. Like I know when I was about to release the game, I was talking with Greg from Retromite about this, and with about 700 copies sold, I should be golden up until March or April in terms of paying taxes and paying rent and paying everything and being able to work on another game or expand this game further. So I'm a lucky person being able to live here. And, yeah, it's like, yeah. No, it's just that I don't think people can afford to have my sales expectation and targets. I'm a bottom feeder. Like I make low budget games that are highly replayable, and it allows me to sell them a bit cheap and not rely on a huge volume to survive in order to continue making games. That's it. Yeah, I would love to go at gaming conferences. Like we start having them in Romania right now, like DevPlane and a lot of them. Like I went to a few things on a way lower scale, smaller scale than ExFree or the big ones from Germany and Cologne. But the thing is, if you go there, you're not going to promote your game to your audience. The biggest reason to go as a developer to one of those conferences, you get to interact with the press and make new contacts, and actually share a few drinks with people from the press, exchange your Twitter handles, because when they get a tweet from you or an email message, they're just going to feel a bit more bad if they ignore you and won't write about your game. And I think this is the biggest reason people go to such conferences, because of the press. And in a marketplace where visibility is a huge issue when you're a small developer, getting in touch with the press is a godsend. So yeah, I'm sorry, but Selo said it right. He went to a lot of conferences and met a lot of press people. Like I remember the first big press thingy was VentureBeat that wrote about their game. And once it went up on VentureBeat, it was pretty much everywhere. Like Rock, Paper, Shotgun covered it, Kotaku covered it. And then he went over to another conference and he spoke with guys from RPS and we're like, yeah, we saw your game on VentureBeat. We linked it on our website. And he started talking about it more. And guess what? He got featured again. And just going like this, you get to establish a contact with the press. You get to talk with them. They'll follow you. And when the time comes to release a game, well, you won't be just an unnamed person saying like, hey, I made the best game ever. Please read my email. Thanks. They'll be like, yeah, it's that guy that we covered before and interacted with. Yeah, let's write on our thing about it. If you'd asked me this question like 1 year ago, I'd be like, just via press, via websites, and via Twitter, because that's how it worked for the last game I released. Like Mutant Gangland got big because of Twitter. And because of Twitter, it ended up on a few press sites. And things were going decent for me and Thomas back then. Nowadays, I have no idea. Like, I had 1,000 followers a few years ago, and I would tweet about my game, and I would get like 9,000, 10,000 impressions through a tweet, and 5 retweets or 10 retweets from some people. Nowadays, I get like 30 retweets and barely 1,000 impressions and free clicks via Twitter. So Twitter's out of the scope for me, marketing-wise. It's only great to inform developers and friends like, hey, so I made an update or I released this game. And they'll tell me about it and, I don't know, give me some suggestions or like, okay, this is what you get to expect. So Twitter's out of the picture. The huge press, it's kind of hard to get in touch with them. And I tried. So that's not working. The thing that worked the most for me, at least in this first week and a half of releasing Ebony Spire, was YouTube and word of mouth. Like I was lucky Gaming on Linux covered me. They covered my game and gave it a great impression. That led to a few other Linux YouTubers to cover the game and play the game, which in turn brought a few small-time, let's say, reviewers to talk about my game. And the thing is, like, you'll get somebody that has 10 visitors on his blog, and he does a review about your game and makes a small YouTube video and has a small following. But that small following, like, they're going to buy your game because of them. So it's not like in turn where you have to work the numbers and you hope you get a reviewer or YouTuber with that gets 1 million views, and you just go by the conversion rate, and out of 1 million views, like 1,000 people will probably buy your game. You actually, from the small time guys, you get 100% conversion rate, and that 100% conversion rate means there are 4 people watching his stream. They're like, yeah, he had fun with it. Those 4 people are going to buy your game, and if you're in my case, the case of a bottom feeder, those 4 sales are pretty much a day worth of food. So I guess it was working for me a lot. I haven't tried Twitch yet. I've sent the game to a few people on Twitch, but I got no responses yet. But I think where it is nowadays is if you want to market your game, you either buy a lot of ads and you invest $1 million, which was the thing that my ex-studio, what I was working at, would do, and you get $1 billion and $10 back. And you keep investing that, and that's how you make revenue. But if you don't have that much money for user acquisition, next best thing is getting in touch with people that are on platforms such as YouTube and Twitch that are passionate, that have a small following, and hope that their small following will buy your game. And in that small following, or via word of mouth, somebody that's bigger gets to cover it. Yeah, but even before you make the game. Like, I'm not joking. I was working on Ebony Spire, like, I think in total it was like 5 or 6 months of development. But that's since last year when I quit my job and went to work for another company. There was a small NDA. I couldn't actually work on the game while being there. But it was like 6 months. And with me quitting the job and actually having to launch the game, I had to skip a lot of marketing. But if I had the chance to go back in time and in that 1 year of not working on the game, and I could spend it my free time just talking about the game and talking about it with people and just putting a playable version in their hand without having to update it, I would go back and do that. Because it's never too soon to start marketing your game in today's world. If you're talking about the reviews that are on Steam, they're all been positive. Like, there's a review in Chinese talking that he's disappointed that you cannot select your sex in Ebony Spire, but it's overall a positive review, and all the reviews that appear there are extremely positive. The only problem I would see, like, is if somebody complains about the game, and I'll take that as a personal thing because I couldn't market the game specifically to highlight why he won't like it and why he shouldn't buy the game. Like, if you check the Steam page for Ebony Spire, you will see that it says there's a section on the Steam store that says why you may not like it. And if I get a negative review, I know that negative review won't be because the game is bad per se. It's because I grew somebody's expectations before buying it. And he ended up spending money on something that he wouldn't have liked to begin with. No, 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 no. That's because I have to get money in exchange for a promise. And as I said earlier, like, my way of working on games, it's like I won't be able to, like 100% sure, I won't be able to deliver the game I promise. Like, I could make a Kickstarter for an FPS, and by the time it's done and I release, it's going to be a turn-based puzzle platformer. Because that's the way it works. And it wouldn't be fair to my backers. So I'm pretty sure I'm not going to use it, except if it's like something like Patreon or an Indiegogo that says, hey, I want to make the next game. This is a list of games that I made that you guys liked. Please give me money to make the next one. It's can't promise exactly what type of game it is, so we're going to do this on the honor system. Pimps versus vampires. Well, there were a lot of people on YouTube playing it. The thing is, we released a lot of demos for it and versions that were publicly accessible. And there were like a lot of YouTubers playing the game back then. It was awesome. But when I set up a BMT micro account and started selling the game, I think I sold 2 copies. And that was because a lot of people were just playing the free version, and I didn't market the other one. I was okay with it, to be honest. I think that's the first game I ever released. Pretty sure that was it, yeah. No, wait, there was I think that was wasn't that on the Level forums? Because I'm pretty sure that's what I meant. Also, I still have that video. Like, I was thinking some time ago, if I ever end up at the IGF on stage winning a prize, like, I would say, like, yeah, like, for my speech, I give you my first game ever marketed. It was this dwarf that I got from Psionics. It was a common module that you'll see everywhere. At least, yeah. Yeah, it was bundled in everything. So I had this dwarf, a mesh with a brick texture on it, a few cubes placed around in like a fountain, and I think something that was a house. And you would move around with totally out of sync animation, and you would play the attack animation with a huge delay, and objects wouldn't just die; they would just be deleted. And that's it. They were gone. There was a sphere with a texture scrolling on it. And I know I posted on the forums that I'm working on a Dwarven RPG with enemy destruction, special effects, open world, and things like that. And I know a few guys from Orga TV that actually had a blast ranting on about what I was doing there. And don't get me wrong, it was a great wake-up call, because I was one of the people that nowadays would post on Greenlight about their successful MMO first-person RPG that also plays like Street Fighter. I never got to release that one, sadly, but it's in the works. Someday. After Swift, definitely not. Look, it's a bit hard because at this point I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make ends meet after Christmas. Like, I'm not even sure I can actually pay for my stuff before Christmas due to the way Valve pays the money. Like, it's not as bad as consoles where you get paid quarterly, I think. I'm not under NDA, so I guess I can say that, but I might be wrong because I haven't released anything for consoles. It's hard, and to be honest, I want to keep doing it, even if it's hard like this, because the response I got from people that are playing my game, it's incredible. There's a guy on Steam that has 40 hours synced into Ebony Spire, and that's a game made for short play sessions. Like, if you know how to play the game, you can finish it in about an hour. Then he had like 20 or 30 hours before procedural generation. Procedural generated levels were a thing. So even though it's hard, and I won't be able to afford like going out and do the things I would do when I was employed somewhere else, if I can just make ends meet and just pay rent, perfect. And I want to keep doing it. Like I want to keep going forward with making games and sacrificing a lot of things. But that was my choice starting 10, 12, 30 years ago when I started making games. Like I didn't do it to be more social or have something to talk about in pubs. I did it so I can talk with people without actually having to talk with them face to face. Just seeing them, how they enjoy my creation. So I wouldn't change it. Honestly, if it was something that I would change, is I would change my burn rate when it comes to money spent. Because if I can lower that, by the way things are going, I think I'm probably going to make it. Gonna need to pick up a few freelancing things, but I hope, and I really hope I won't have to go back and get a job and work on software and spend hours and hours in a meeting for a change that I could do in 5 minutes. And if that doesn't work, I can change it again for 5 more minutes. Or even worse, get back into working for a studio that has me designing free-to-play games and altering the design in order to attract whales and get people to spend more. So I don't regret it. I don't regret it even one bit. But I just hope I can survive it. Just that mobility, I think I worked on 4 or 5 games. Only 2 of them got released. Can't talk about it much, but yeah, like 4 or 5 games there. I think it was 4 games at Gameloft. Nova Free, The Dark Knight Rises being one of a few of them. Asphalt there also, a bit in Modern Combat 5 at the beginning. And I think I did like 10 game jams. And I don't know, just games that saw the light of day, there'll be like 20 games, I think. Yeah. I think even more so, because I have huge NASCAR jackets with like 30 games that were released. And unreleased, including my own project, I think I'm close to 100. Like it took me 10 years and 80 failed games, unreleased games, to get where I'm at now. Well, when I'm working for another studio, I think the biggest obstacle that I encountered is the fact that I have to adapt myself to the way the team's working. Like I know this sounds obvious, but again, I'm used to coding things my own. And if I work as a game designer somewhere, usually it's as a level designer, and I get access to scripting the game, like I'd script and make special AIs, special behaviors for enemies in that game. And I would code scenes that are changing themselves. That when, like in Nova Free, there's an entire section in the 2nd or 3rd level where you're moving on a train inside a railway. It was like the feature wasn't implemented. So I remember I spent the night on my own volition at the office and just coded the entire section myself there, and enemies that would have to stick to the platform because the game engine wouldn't support moving objects with other objects on top of them. So my problem is like in terms of working at studios, I have to adapt myself to not do that because I'm hindering the team. When they come back the other day and they play through the prototype, see where the game's at, and they see stuff like that, they're like, that's amazing. When did we get that in? And the answer usually will be, well, we never did. That this asshole spent the night here and did something like that, but we cannot adapt it to other things. So if you like it that much, we got to change our entire schedule and work on it. And I'm basically throwing everybody off because then they want to see how it looks with graphics. So the 3D team and the art team would have to change their schedules in order to do the things that I did, and that's the biggest problem with studios. And as for myself, I think I work a bit way too fast than I should have, and I kind of lose track of what's the most important thing in the game, because I can pretty much change everything in it at my own will due to the way I wrote my stuff. And it's easy to get distracted by, I can add that, and I'm going to start adding that. And, well, this hammer isn't working exactly as I wanted. I just added it, and I can make an exception to it. And I create something new, a special routine for that hammer. And then I'm like, I think this would also work really well with guns, because instead of throwing the hammer, you can just shoot it, and a bullet would go out there. And like this happened in Ebony Spire. I was trying to make a sword that would do damage and heal you whenever it hit an enemy. And 15 minutes later, I added guns to the game. That if you're not prepared for success, when you have it, it's going to be a huge bummer because you won't know how to handle it. And being unprepared for anything, like when I start working on a game, I'm going in with the mindset that the game's going to fail. Like it's going to fail hard. And I prepare myself for that. That in Mutant Gangland's case, and I think it was the same thing with Swift back in the day, when it got so much positive attention from people, and I saw people coming from everywhere, like, the game's great, it's awesome, oh, it just needs this, and it needs that. I get scared from that much attention. Like, I used to get scared from that, and I never knew how to handle it. And I usually just like, okay, I guess multiplayer would work in Mutant Gangland. And then, you start adding it, and it's working, but there's that one bug that's happening, and you're already tired, and you already spent a lot of time working on it, and you just can't bring yourself to fix it, and that day turns into a week of not fixing it, and then you're at, like, what's the point? I'm just going to disappoint everybody because I cannot add it the way they wanted to. So I think the biggest lesson is be prepared to have success and know how to mitigate that. And I don't mean success by making millions and billions and gajillions of dollars. I mean success starts that you get a lot of attention. And also lower your scope and stop listening to people on the internet telling you how to do your game. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If I can describe Ebony Spire, like, I think the best way to describe it is what would happen if Eye of the Beholder, Cardinal Quest, Adam with the first person iteration, and let's say Doom Roguelike all got together and had a huge orgy. Ebony Spire with Papa. It's a first-person dungeon-crawling turn-based roguelike with grid-based movement and item throwing everywhere, where the enemies can pick up and use the items the same way you do, and they will throw potions at you. It's a clusterfuck of items and enemies and pixels moving everywhere. Not yet, because I'm at a point where I have to market the game and get it in front of other people. And when I request keys, like, I haven't sent them willy-nilly to any place. Like, I have a few YouTubers, and I send the keys, and I'll send it to 10 YouTubers per day. And the other day, the next day, I'm just going to track the keys and see, did they activate it? Yeah, okay. Did they make a video? No. So there weren't a lot of keys going out there, and I certainly haven't responded to any of the hundreds of emails requests like, hey, give me key to game, I'll make you big, big. So the keys that I've sent never got on G2A. What happened, though, is like somebody put the game up on tracker sites, on torrents, and I'm sorry that I cannot show you the visits graph on the Steam store page, but torrent sites actually beat Steam visibility because it's been on torrents for 2 days. And the thing with the game's the visibility was, like, I've been in pre-launch for 2 weeks on Steam, and you'd have a graph that would go like this with people discovering the game. It was almost a flat line, slightly going up till release. You get a huge spike on release day, and then we just drop down, drop down, drop down as soon as the visibility ends. Now, it got to a point where it's a bit better than the first 2 weeks in pre-release, and then the game hit torrent site, and my vids almost spiked to the point where the views I got in the launch day, it's almost one-to-one with the views I get from torrent sites that link back to the store. I tweeted this morning, like, I have an achievement out. Like, there were people who pirated the game and actually bought the game and came on the forums and told me, like, hey, yeah, you should tag this game with this tag because I searched for this games on Steam and I don't find yours, but I found it on the torrent site and oh my God, I liked it, so I bought it. So, yeah, I was like, so I don't have a problem with key reselling up till this point. And turns out I don't have a problem with people pirating my game. Like, that's the best marketing that ever happened to the game. Yeah, I know what I want to do next, but before I'll start doing it, I want to make sure that Ebony Spire has all the attention I'm supposed to get it. And I mean, updating it for the player, discovering a few use cases in terms of usability or some problems people are facing that I wasn't expecting, like being left-handed or I don't know, and mitigating all those problems to make sure everybody that enjoys those types of games can enjoy it to the max. And once that's done, I'm pretty sure I know what kind of a game I want to make next. Yeah, it's going to be similar to Ebony Spire in terms of, like, I built a engine that I want to improve. So the next step would be still quad sprites for the enemies, textures on a plane. But instead of having 2D sprites, I can go with, for items or objects or barrels, like I did with the crates, could have desks and, I don't know, environment things as 3D models, and just evolve the engine as a bit like the games from the Elder Scrolls series went from Arena to Daggerfall to Morrowind, something like that, and make a game in a pretty similar style in the way it looks to Ebony Spire, but it's going to be more action-oriented. I think the easiest way to describe it would be if Doom was played in a comic book, but extremely fast-paced and old-school type of maze-like levels with explosions everywhere. Could be. And it's, yeah. No, so the thing about it, like, I added multiplayer to the framework back in Mutant Gameloft day, so that's something, as soon as I get a working prototype up with being able to shoot other people in the face with a rocket, I'm going to try and see if I can shoot other people in the face with a rocket on land. And I'm still going to aim it towards a low amount of people that might enjoy the game, because I'm not probably going to be multiplayer with bots for the most case, except of a small campaign. I've given it a bit of thought, but like I said earlier, like I can say, like, I want to work on a Doom kind game in a comic book, but in the end, it's probably just going to be a multiplayer game, or it might change to a turn-based tactical shooter. But yeah, it's your turn. I think the only awards that they ever won was the IndieDB Top 100 kind of thing, and that was in Mutant Gangland's day. Or I think there was Softpedia gave it an award at one point to Pimps versus Vampires, but I just don't remember what. The thing is, it cannot win awards if I don't submit it for stuff. So, big awards? No. Small awards? No. Seeing people, and we can take that back to Mutant Gang, and I think it was a bit more on Thomas's side, but seeing people wear merchandise of the game you're working on, and I don't mean seeing people with Nova Free or Asphalt 6 t-shirts, I mean working on a small game, and there being fan art everywhere from your game, and people asking about it, and people showing off t-shirts wearing characters from your game. And even though I don't work on Mutant Gangland anymore, and I think I gave the license back to Tommy, I'm still seeing the work he's doing with the game. I've seen people play with papercraft and toys from that game. And don't get me wrong, it's extremely exciting to see something that you worked on and helped shape to this day, making people having people buy merchandise of that thing and enjoying it and exploring that world. It's one of the best feelings ever. And there was another case where I don't think if you know Rogue Sweeper. Well, okay, cool, awesome. I had a few emails from a guy that went like this, like, hey, so I found your game Rogue Sweeper on itch.io. It's amazing. Like I like it. It gave me a great idea for a game. I was like, oh, hey, glad you found it, glad you enjoyed it, and have fun making your own version of Rogue Sweeper. He sent back another email like 2 or 3 weeks later, something like, yeah, so I noticed there's the source code there. So, hey, I made a few changes to it. And I was like, awesome. Congrats. And a few months down the line, I received a link to a tick source, I think, post like, hey, I discovered this game on itch.io. And I started making my own one. It's not using your source code, but it's going like this. And it was a huge inspiration. And thank you for making it. And getting email or just tweets or DMs for people playing your games and being inspired to make your games, at least for me, it means that I achieved the goal I've set up to achieve back in when I started making games. Like, I'm interacting with people, you know? I'm talking with them and I'm making them experience my game. And it turns out my games are so good, at least in the eyes of those person, that they want to pick up making their own game thanks to it. And that's a huge win in my book. I think that's the best thing I ever did in my life. I don't know. I honestly don't know. A few years back, like let's say last year, I would say I really want to make a RPG. I want to make Dragon Age Origins again, but you know that game was already made. So I don't know if I would ever be able to make it better than the guys at BioWare did. A few years prior to that, I would say like I want to make small games like Advanced Wars and stuff like that. 10 years ago, I was like, I want to make an MMORPG. Like right now, I have no idea what my ideal game would be. I want to experience a lot more games, and I want to have fun with a lot more prototypes. Because I'm at a point where the game I'm working on at the moment is the game I wanted the most to make. I just cannot dream bigger than what I can achieve right now. Well, it can't be dying because it just learned how to walk. And right now it's learned how to open doors and meet new avenues. I won't say it's exactly healthy because it's like, I feel like the industry is in the 5th or 6th grade and saw the kids from high school smoking. It's like, I want to smoke too, you know? And they're trying to be something it's not. And it's going to take a few years for things to settle down because it went from something that the parents hated, you know, games and Mortal Kombat, to something that people started enjoying as a way to pass the time, make into movies, to having people discover they can make their own games and opening the floodgates to a lot of people wanting to make the games, to a point where there are so many games out there and so many people still working on their games 2 or 3 years on hoping the things to be like they were 3 or 4 years ago. And we first need all these people to wake up and realize things aren't the same way they were when they started out. So I don't think it's healthy, but I don't think it's dying. I think it has a crisis of identity right now. Well, I hope to reach the point where I can afford to hire an artist and a sound guy and somebody to act as a producer to beat me with a stick every time I just want to go outside of the scope for a little bit. Like my long-term goal is to keep on making the games I want to play and hopefully support myself to fail 3, 4, or 5 times in a row before making a game that pays for 3 more or 4 more attempts at failure. My goal is simple. I just want to make a game that's slightly bigger than the previous one. Yeah, as soon as you release Mutant Gangland, turn off Twitter, turn off everything else, and just keep working on it. If I say Fallout 4, will we sound weird? Because I bought it. It was the first game I bought when I got the PlayStation 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. And I played it for like 15 minutes, couldn't get used to the gamepad controls, couldn't get used to not having access to the console menu so I can spawn items and spawn people and just play with it like it's an engine. So I dropped it, and there's a guy on Twitter, Wordless Bombs, that works on Steam Marine, that has a huge Twitter thread, like 200, 300 replies with screenshots about him role-playing through Fallout 4. And that got me interested to check it out again. And I spent, I think, the last 4 days basically neglecting my girlfriend and my cats, playing it. When not updating Ebony Spire, but yeah, I think that's the one I sink the most time in. And besides that, it's got to be Rocket League. I don't know. I think I have like 600 or 700 hours in it. That's the one I spend most time this year. The next closest one would be Mountain Blade Warband, where I have an obnoxious, like, industrial level of hours spent playing it and taking my little country of Principate of Wallachia in 1257 AD to conquering the whole map. I'm just about to let go of this interview, but I would play right into your trap with the letting go. It's still stuck in my head, especially due to the fact that I have friends that love to tease me every few months by saying like, hey, so do you working on Frozen, or did you just let go of that thought? And then they basically start exploding into songs. And I'm way too short on tequila shots and beer to be able to ignore them. If you want to work on your own game and you want to do it full time, be prepared for hidden costs. Like, it's great. Like, people are better than me at making a budget and sticking to it. But even those people can hit rock bottom if an emergency arises or rises up. Like, it could be a medical emergency or an earthquake or something like that. So have an escape plan prepared for that. And there's also another thing. If you've been in the game industry long enough and you want to quit working for studios and you want to move to software, just keep in mind the fact that people in the software industry will typecast you to being able to only make games. And that's something like I've hit a wall there last year when I switched jobs. Just make sure you're prepared to explain to them that even though you've been making games for the past 10 years, you can still add an input field on a form via drag and drop, and you can make software as a service. Because that's really heartbreaking to hear. Like, I don't think you're right for coding buttons in input fields and working with databases. But that's pretty much it. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the interview. If you can buy my games, that would be awesome. If you can pirate them, no problem with that. I'm okay for it. The source code is up on GitHub. You got my email address on my Steam page, and the discussion forums are always open. You can find me on Twitter at ZAPAKITUL. Never ask me what that stands for. I'm still embarrassed by it, but I made it when I was in 7th grade, and it's stick to this day. And I cannot change my handle as much as I wanted, even though I want it. Yeah, check out GaminGHD, other videos and interviews, because there are a few cool ones there.
Thank you for watching this show. If you enjoyed it, please consider watching some of our other videos and maybe sharing them or giving a thumbs up if you feel like it. And if you really liked what you saw, please check out our Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you could help us make much better shows and get some rewards in the process.